I'm Chad and you're watching 9 to 5 to Life. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly step by step how we insulated our walls on our steel building with this 3-inch foam board insulation. And real quick, I know what you're thinking. We should have used spray foam. The first video we did on this when we first started the project, we talked about why we didn't use spray foam. I don't want to come across as a hater for spray foam. I know it's actually good stuff when applied properly, when using the proper chemical for the exact temperature it's supposed to be. Having it mixed properly to have it done by professionals, it's good stuff. It is good stuff. But there's a lot of disadvantages also, and there's disadvantages about this stuff. But the biggest reason we're using this 3-inch foam board closed cell insulation is mainly because of cost. First thing I did when I decided I needed to insulate our garage was I got a hold of a spray foam company up here in the Upper Peninsula. I think there's only one company that does it up here, and it was a crazy, outrageous price. The price was just over $10,000 more than we're going to spend on insulating this whole garage, and it will actually do the trick. Maybe not just as good, but it is very good the way we're doing it. I'm not hating on the spray foam people. I just couldn't afford to spend all that money spray foaming it. This will work just fine. When we first started this project, we'd cut this foam board out just perfect to fit tight up against everything, real tight, and it was kind of a pain in the butt getting it to fit in there and stuff. And then we'd use a construction adhesive for foam board also. Some construction adhesive will actually melt your foam board, so if you're going to use that, be sure to get it for foam board. To be honest with you, I don't think there's any R value in construction adhesive, so if you do end up with a little gap somewhere, that construction adhesive is not going to stop any heat from getting out or cold air from coming in. We ended up not using the construction adhesive. What we started doing instead was using the spray can right here. We started using this spray can, great stuff, pest block for the cracks. All right, now that right here, this isn't like an actual spray foam like you would get from a professional company. This only has, I believe, between a 3 and 4 R value per inch. What we try to do is make sure we get it back in the crack far enough. And at first, if you look at this real closely, we were still putting the pieces of foam board really tight. So when you go to put your foam in it, you really couldn't get it in that tight crack. So what we found, the best way to do it, which actually someone told me, I believe they left a comment on our first video we did of this, to leave a 1/4 inch gap around the whole everything. A 1/4 inch gap. So make this every cut a 1/4 of an inch short. That way you have a 1/4 inch. You can fit the tip of this nozzle all the way to the back side of the 3-inch and work your way out and have it seal 3 inches thick with your great stuff foam, 3 inches thick. That way it seals it and you're not going to get any heat loss through your crack. We learned that after a while, and the other advantage of actually cutting this a 1/4 of an inch smaller was when we were trying to fit these pieces in, it was really hard to get them fitting perfect and get them in there. We had to trim a lot. It took a lot of time. When we started cutting these a 1/4 of an inch smaller, they went up a lot faster and much easier. When placing the 3-inch foam board on the walls, we did not put them directly against the metal. We did not put them directly against the metal. We put them on top of the purlins. They're 2x4 purlins, so they're about 1.5 inches. So there's 1.5 inch air gap between the 3-inch foam board insulation and the steel, the outer steel siding on the outside of the building. So there's 1.5 inch air gap. What that air gap will do is if any moisture gets in there whatsoever, it'll be able to dry and it's not going to stick right to it. If we had this directly up against our metal on the outside, if moisture condensation ever does get to it, then it's going to take it a lot longer to dry. It's just going to sit there wet right on the metal, and you don't want that. You want it to be able to dry. So it does have ventilation from the bottom all the way to the top. It's all ventilated up there, so it's all breathing the outside air on behind this. So behind this is going to be the same temperature as the outside air. If you've ever went in your grandma's attic in her old house, I used to go up my grandma's attic to get Christmas decorations out in wintertime, and then I'd have to go up there in the summertime for some china stuff she had up there. And it was the same temperature up there as it was outside, and there was no moisture condensation anywhere. It was great. It was nice and dry. In the summertime I went up there, it was very hot. Same temperature as the outside, there was no moisture anywhere. The air gap between the foam board and the metal is the same thing as that attic. There's cool air, the same temperature as the outside. Also, when we first started putting these up, we would countersink 3-inch screws. They're galvanized screws. We countersink them in about 1 inch. Screw them right into the purlins, just enough to hold this in place until we get our sheet metal up for our walls. Whatever you're putting up over top of this is going to hold that down. Once we got all these screwed to the wall, we left our 1/4-inch gap between everything. We left a 1/4-inch gap between here, 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 and here. We took our Great Stuff foam. We made sure it reached all the way in the back. So we have 3 inches of Great Stuff foam in the crack. After it was all spray foamed, all our cracks and everything, we actually went over it with this little fancy tool right here. It was so much faster. This thing vibrates like, and like that, and you angle it just a little bit. You don't want to angle it so it goes in. Like that. Pretty easy. Don't touch this with your finger. Your hands back away from it. Best thing to do, one hand up here and one right here. Put your hand out and you touch that thing, it'll slice right through you. It works awesome for trimming the thick part of the foam off so it's flat. We tried a knife by hand and everything, and it took forever, so I forgot I had this tool, and it just worked perfect for the job. So after taking all the foam off that was sticking out, you don't want to dig in, you just want to make it flush with your panel. We ended up using this construction adhesive tape. Now this stuff is it's kind of expensive, but it sticks very, very good. You tape them up really good with this. Also, you won't get any air to come in, even if you do miss a spot with the foam or if it breaks loose later. This stuff right here is very, very strong. It's supposed to last forever. It's weather resistant. And when using any type of construction tape or any tape in general, you want to make sure when you put it down there, you want your crack obviously directly in the middle, and you want to make sure you're pushing. You want pressure so that adhesive that's on this tape right here is pushed into the small microfibers of your foam board. You want it pushed in there really good. So make sure you spend extra time pushing that down there, and this stuff will stay forever. You shouldn't ever have a problem with that. So it's going to be sealed up really good. The one thing that we haven't done yet and we're going to have to redo is I had my daughter tape up the holes where we countersink our screws. Well, I decided to have her stop because what we're going to do is actually peel them back off, take this Great Stuff foam and just squirt it in those holes and then slice it off and then put it over it, just so we don't lose any R value. Maybe I'm being too picky, but if you get a bunch of screws, it's only, because we're countersinking them 1 inch, so there's only 2 inches of foam now behind that. We taped off even the corners, everything all the way around. We don't want any air to come in, any air to go out. We just want to keep all our heat in here. On the outside edge on the bottom, where your sheet metal goes down and out, make sure there's a rat guard put on the bottom of that, else you will have bugs, mice, and everything else coming in. My thought at first was that's great, it's a good air vent for air to be able to come up and keep it nice and dry back through there, but as a lot of people have mentioned on our first video, that's a perfect spot to have mice come in, crawl around, make nice homes behind your nice foam board insulation. So install a rat guard. My daughter Haley and I installed a rat guard around. We actually could not finish installing a rat guard around the whole building because we have 20 cord of firewood stacked on one side. So what we did was, before we put up the foam board insulation on that side, we took the Great Stuff pest block foam stuff and sprayed it in those holes for now, for temporary, even though it says pest block. I'm not sure, maybe bugs or whatnot, but I think if mice wanted to chew through anything, they can chew through it if they wanted to get there. But we put this down for now until we can install our rat guard when we get the firewood out of our way. For our garage doors, we used 1.5" foam board, which was really simple. We just cut them, stuck them in. They fit great. We just put we had a little assembly line going, put the Great Stuff spray foam around it, stuck it in there, holds up good. The stuff's so lightweight, you don't need to add spring tension on your garage doors. They'll still open and shut just fine. So 1.5". Yes, it's only 7.5 R value on the doors, but I am in here in a t-shirt right now. I got a wood stove going on low. I don't even have a fan going. It is nice and warm in here. It is 17 degrees outside and I cannot complain. We don't even have all this stuff sealed completely yet. We have one wall by our electrical box that is not even sealed or foamed at all right now because we are waiting on our electrical inspection to get done before we can go ahead and seal that wall up as well. I forgot to mention cutting this material. This is 3 inches thick, so a lot of you will think you can just score it and break it, which you can with this. We have tried it. The problem is being so thick at 3 inches, when you slice it, or you want to break it and you break it, it actually breaks at an angle, so you're getting very inconsistent angles. So you'll have them butt up against each other and they can go way back, so then you have like 2-inch gaps back there, you know, a quarter up in the front, but then toward the back part it dropped down an inch or so. So it breaks off very inconsistently at angles, so we did not use that trick. A table saw, I'm hearing, will work really good to cut this stuff, as long as your saw is capable of reaching 3-inch depth. But we really didn't need anything but the handsaw. A wood handsaw was just perfect for the job. It was actually very quick, very easy, it was actually quiet. It squeaked a little bit, but it was fast, easy. We have no complaints about that, and if we got to go any faster than that, then I guess we should be doing this for a living. But it worked out just fine using a regular old-timer wood handsaw. We tried a Sawzall, and when you're cutting a big, long length of the Sawzall, it just gets a little, doesn't stay completely straight unless we really took our time. But the handsaw was just so much faster and straighter because of how wide the blade is and how long it is. It just made our cut extra straight. If you got a table saw or whatnot and you want to use that, or a skill saw maybe, some people flip it upside down, cut one side and flip it over and cut the other, but we used the handsaw and it worked great because that's what we had. We know you can buy a hot knife. It's a knife that heats up really hot and it cuts through this stuff like butter, they say. I've taken a lot of classes when it comes to foam, particularly in the automotive. And anytime you heat up foam and there's any smoke, it lets off toxic emissions that you do not want to be breathing in. So that was just a big enough reason for me why we just didn't go buy a hot knife and use it to cut this stuff. And my kids helped me, so I did not want them to have to breathe in all that toxic smoke either. And I didn't want to drive somewhere, which for us up here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, for me to drive to a big box store, that's like half a day here. It's a long way to travel. We're out in the middle of kind of nowhere here in the Upper Peninsula. And like I said, I had that saw and it worked great. Another thing is using spray foam. When we sealed up our cracks while we're using that canned spray foam, I actually found that when you're trying to seal the crack up around your electrical outlets, receptacles, you really want to leave your spray foam away from that a little bit, I think. And so I started doing that, and I just have some fiberglass insulation that I just stuck stuff in there. Reason for that is, I don't know if that stuff will get up inside there. And if you ever had to go back in there and change your receptacle, with that spray foam there, you won't have any give on your wire. It's going to be just right there. So using the fiberglass fuzzy stuff, you'll be able to move it around, tuck more in there if need be, fix your wiring, put a new receptacle in, it'll be fine. Now that we got to this point, we're about ready to put our sheet metal up. We're gonna go ahead and use some nice corrugated sheet metal that we got from the Amish, burnished slate. And how we're gonna attach this, I'll show you. So, when we put this up, there's purlins running through here. We got the walls marked where they're at. We'll be using a 4-inch roofing sheet metal screw that'll go through here, through our foam board insulation, into the purlin. So it'll be in the purlin 1 inch. And this stuff is very rigid. It will work just fine, and it'll actually hold this down a lot better. If we ever had to do any repairs behind this, we'd be able to just take the screws off, untape it, pop off a little bit of our spray foam that we sealed it with, and do our work and put it all back up. If we were to spray foam this building, if we ever had to do any work behind it, we wouldn't be able to. If we accidentally hit the outside of the building with my tractor bucket and sliced it, it would be a real pain in the butt replacing that one piece of sheet metal, because I'd have to cut out all that spray foam insulation. Then I have to get a hold of the company or buy myself a kit and try to re-spray foam it all, which would be a pain in the butt. So it's another good reason for this stuff right here. You're probably wondering what we did with our ceiling. Well, that's going to be in another video. So if you're not subscribed to our channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want. If not, just write it on your calendar to check us here or at some point, because we will be showing you how we're doing our insulation and stuff on our ceiling. We actually have our sheet metal on our ceiling up right now, and it's partially insulated, but we're not completely done with it yet. We're waiting on electrical inspectors to come out. We're waiting on a heat unit installation to be done, a few other things before we could actually finish our insulation up there. So stay tuned for that video. So hope you got a lot out of this video. If I missed anything and you have any other questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comments. I will try to answer any question that you may have. It's always nice to hear your thoughts. We've learned actually a lot from our comment section.